so folks, you guys may have heard there's only going to be 8 episodes of season 2 of House of the Dragon. And along with that news comes the news that they are looking at greenlighting season 3 ahead of time, meaning before they've even done season 2. And so some people have written to me in consternation, and many more people have tweeted in consternation about this, Tim. You wouldn't believe this, but the people on Twitter are upset and they're rushing to judgment. You'd never expect that. It never happens. I know.
It never happens.
It's so unlike Twitter. Stares into camera. Okay, so here's the thing. For a show to get greenlit 2 seasons ahead of time is nuts. That's good. Especially given the environment right now where shows are dropping like flies, as Sir Alistair Thorne says. Like flies. And shout out to 1899. And HBO in particular has pared down their budget on a lot of stuff. They've changed ownership or management, or I forget which. I can't keep track of this stuff. I think Disney replaced their CEO. HBO got bought. Point is, it's not a good time right now for shows. So to get extended 2 seasons out is really good. And you can see why these 2 pieces of news are related. Because the reason why they're only doing 8 seasons or 8 episodes, Tim, is because there's a major event, and I'm not going to talk about guessing which one it is because that's spoiler territory, and I haven't taken the time to think about it. But something that was going to be at the end of season 2 is now going to be in season 3 instead, because it just works better for how they're doing it. Mm-hmm. We know that in Fire and Blood, there are some choices with where you could chop the seasons, and there's also a question of which events might be scaled down and which ones might be scaled up to focus on. It's natural that in the adaptation, there's going to be some of those choices going to have to be made. And a lot of the stuff in Fire and Blood, huge battles with dragons and shit. Probably we might not get every battle. We might, first and second Tumbleton. We might just get one Tumbleton. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that stuff chews up budget pretty quick. And it's also repetitive. How many horrific battles do we need to see? The show is based on characters and intrigue and stuff. I'm very curious, Tim, how they're going to handle pivoting to like a war-based show, whereas the first one is just like the run-up to war, which is a lot more closer to like classic TV, period dramas that have been done. When you're doing this stuff is going to be like making movies from here on out. A lot of the episodes, so it makes sense that we might have fewer episodes. For that reason, because some of these are going to be big pitched battles. Some of them may run longer than 60 minutes. In order to make this choice, and I'll let you get on this, Tim, in just a second, making this choice to move one major event from the end of season 2 to season 3, they can do that if they're assured that they are going to get season 3. And the best news of all this is that they're planning this out on a course that looks like it's going to need 4 seasons. So that's always what I have said that they would need to talk about some of the aftermath. Because the Dance of the Dragons War, it kind of peters out, but then there's some really interesting stuff that happens, something called the Hour of the Wolf. The Cregan Stark comes in and has his big moment, and there's some other stuff that happens. So I've always thought that they would do a lot of that, Tim. And I feel like this news, it makes me increasingly believe that is the way it's going to go. It's going to be 4 seasons. They are going to do that aftermath stuff. So mostly I'm seeing this as good news. The other thing about greenlighting season 3 ahead of time is there should be a shorter turnover between season 2 and 3 because they already now have a budget for season 3. So they can start booking locations that they're going to film at instead of starting fresh with that when you're doing 1 season at a time. Because we're going to have at least a 1.5 year gap by the time season 2 comes out. They originally said spring of 2024. Now they're saying summer. So we're going to have almost a 2-year gap, actually. It'd be 1 3 quarters between seasons. So by greenlighting 2 seasons at a time, I think part of the plan has to be to do, to have a quicker turnover between the seasons. So mostly I would say it's pretty good news. And the other thing is just like, wait and see, as what I always say. You can't armchair quarterback these decisions when you don't know about all the other decisions that they're making. So we won't really know if it's good or bad news until we see how it turns out. But of course, season 1 was doing time jump stuff, and it felt a little compressed. From here on out, we are doing linear storytelling. It will be less compressed. So I don't know that it's going to feel rushed just because it has 8 episodes. Your thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, because I had heard the 8-episode thing, but at the same time, they never mentioned what the run times are. So even if it's 8 episodes, but let's say they're like 75 minutes rather than just 60, that will make, that makes up the difference. The other complaints I heard was also that George was in on writing scripts. I mean, one that pisses off the book fans because it means George is distracted. Another thing distracting George from wins. But it also, people then get the idea of like, oh, well, if George is feeling the need to come in on script writing, then what's going on with the other writers? Are they like taking the story in a way that George doesn't want them to, and now he feels the need to like have more oversight? And that's already come from the people who have been complaining, myself included, about like the way they are portraying Damon, like, oh, like they're trying to make this guy they're trying to make him an even shittier character than he seems to be. And it's like, well, but then that leads into the worst parts of the fandom that then start screaming woke, that kind of shit. And it's like, no. Like, let's just take a step back here and just see, like, maybe there's another thing. Maybe George just wants to be a bit more hands-on this time.
Yeah, Sarah Hess did become a strange, like, target. I understand criticizing the statements that any of the showrunners make in the after show thing. Like, I don't really even like watching the after show thing. But she became a lightning rod to the point of like, why is it her that's like getting all this vitriol? The bottom line is that I think, Tim, it's good news that George is being involved, because the thing that he was sad about with the original thing is that they stopped consulting him after season 3 or 4. And that's what he always says. He doesn't criticize what they did, but he will say, I was hurt, that they didn't ask me, and I didn't have anything to do with any of that. And when I watched it on TV, it was as much a surprise to me as it was to you. That's what he said in that interview with History of Westeros last year. So the fact that he has a good enough working relationship with Ryan to be able to come in and help with the writing, whatever the reason is, that's a good sign for the future of the show, because A, it means they have a good working relationship, and B, if George is writing, it's going to be good. So maybe he saw something that needed to be corrected. Maybe he saw a show that he really liked and he wants to be involved in it because he's so excited about seeing his world come to life in a way that's a lot closer to his intention than the last 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. So, and as far as being delayed for Winds of Winter, I always tell people that George, the issue is always inspiration, not time. Okay, George is a gardener. That means he works on inspiration. If he's struggling with wins, it's not because he types really slow and it's just like, oh man, I just can't write these pages. It's like, no, it's the ideas. So if he's being involved with other projects, A, that's good because that means his creative juices are flowing. And B, anyone that's an artist knows that you have to rotate projects. You can't just force yourself to work on one thing all the time. If you've got some long-running project, you have to mix in other stuff so that you stay fresh when you come back to the main project. So at this point, we've been waiting over a decade for the damn book. I don't really know what the point is in guessing. The main thing is I look at how George sounds in his interviews. For a couple of years, he's sounded really negative. Every time he brought up wins, about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, that changed. Right around the time that House of the Dragon was coming to life. And he started talking about, I've finished Cersei and I finished Tyrion's arc and I went back to this chapter and I'm having a good time and making some progress here. And now he's telling us how many words he's done. He's written a book's worth of words, 11 or 1,200 pages as of his last update. But his target is 1,500 for the book, which is almost so big that it would have to be put in 2 volumes. That's bigger than any of the books so far. He's already written a Dance of Dragons worth of words on wins. He just isn't finished with the arcs that need to be in there, if you understand what's going on. So,
it's also you got to remember too, it's quality over quantity. Like, I don't want to divert too much because we got to get back to Dunk and Egg, but I just wanted to bring up, I did see that interview where it was George R.R. Martin and Stephen King together, and George asked Steve like how you're able to pump out books so quickly. And the thing is though, like not to not to like really beat shit on Stephen King, but the thing is with Stephen King books, for every there's a dozen dream catchers. Okay, like you got to remember that it's quality over quantity.
Yeah, and I don't want to name any names and criticize anyone, but there's plenty of well-known fantasy authors who churn out multiple books a year, who are highly acclaimed and make a lot of money. You guys know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say his name. Compare the quality of those books to Song of Ice and Fire, and someone I like Dreamcatcher says I don't know how to change names. Yeah, so point taken. But so there you go, guys. That's my commentary on the. Oh, sorry. What'd you say, Tim?
Oh, I was talking to. I don't know how to change names. I said you would like Dreamcatcher.
So, in any case, that's my commentary on the latest news about the House of the Dragon. It's mostly good news. If they're greenlighting 2 seasons ahead of time, it means that it's something that HBO is going to spend money on, and is, where other stuff is being cut, they're saying, hey, we're going to guarantee this thing for 2 seasons. So just like you'd expect, it's one of their main horses, and they're going to feed that horse and ride it until Aerion Brightflame comes along and stabs it in the neck with a lance. Yeah!
I was going to say, before HBO needed to compete with Marvel, but now if Disney bought HBO and Disney already owns Marvel, I don't know who they're competing with anymore.
Yeah. Oh gosh, does that mean I get to be in the X-Men now? Oh.
We all bow to the mouse at this point. What doesn't Disney own?